So, because this had a wide release in 2016, I finally got to see it. And even though I know that Inside Out is definitely going to win Best Animated Picture because, yeah, it's just going to win. You just know it's going to happen. I feel this deserves it a little bit more. Anomalisa is a stop-motion animated film that is incredibly realistic. I mean, yeah, it's stop-motion animation, but it's one of the most realistic stop-motion animation I've seen. Anomalisa is about a man named Michael Stone, who's played by David Thewlis. Is that how you pronounce that name? I know most people will know him as Professor Lupin from the Harry Potter franchise, but I know him more for the evil villain in Dragonheart. Yeah, he was in Dragonheart. Look it up. Anyway, Michael Stone is a famous author that is not fictional author, but a non-fiction author who deals with customer service. His instructional book has apparently helped a lot of people, at least in this world. And he goes to Cincinnati for a conference to talk about his book and give a speech. But despite being very successful, he has some psychological problems, and he's also very lonely. And along this trip, he comes across Lisa, who is played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. Yeah, totally different role from her, at least since the last movie I saw with her in it. Very different from that. And sparks fly with these two as they start an affair, and that's about all I'm going to say about the story, except for a few extra little things that is very good in this film. Now, I haven't seen all of the nominated pictures for Best Animated Film. Out of the 5, I've seen 4 now, or is it 3? But either way, I feel out of the ones I have seen, this is definitely the best one. First of all, let's talk about the animation, because that's quite frankly one of the most marvelous things about this movie, is how realistic this stop-motion animation really looks. The expressions on their face, the movements of their hands, so many little details in this animation looks incredibly realistic and great. I mean, they look and feel like real people in this film, and that was very, very gratifying to see. Obviously, there are a few little things that obviously make it stop-motion animation, but other than that, there are moments where you look at it and it almost seems like you're looking at a real person. Which I know begs the question, why is it animation? Why didn't they do it in live action? But then again, yeah, this film wouldn't have worked in live action, especially with the theme, which I'll get into a little bit later in this review. But ultimately, this story isn't this cartoony, wacky, and crazy adventure or even a fantasy. This is a very real human drama. And quite honestly, that's something we don't really see a lot in animated films. Or at least a lot of the popular ones. Now, when it comes to the stop-motion characters, there are lines on the faces and around the head. Basically, when they had to pop in new expressions during the stop-motion animation tricks. But honestly, it actually helps add to the film, because there are moments where there's these 2 nightmare moments that our main character has as he's having this psychological breakdown. And those lines actually help make it even more nightmarish. Also gives some people a more robotic feel to them, which also adds to some of his interpretations of what people look like. So even though the lines were distracting at the beginning, it does ultimately make sense, and I don't fault the film for it. Not only do a lot of the characters look realistic, they act realistic as well. There's so much of this film that just feels like you're watching a real human because of the acting and because of the actual expressions on their faces. David Thewlis and Jennifer Jason Leigh do an amazing job in this film. Feel like real people. Michael Stone feels like a real person that is got this psychological breakdown happening, as well as he's very lonely, he's really bored with life, he's aggravated with other people. It's very clear, and he's also quite the hypocrite. And Jennifer Jason Leigh, as opposed to her role in Hateful Eight, she's a very, very shy girl. She's not the diabolical girl in Hateful Eight. She's a very shy, very unsure of herself, and it's quite interesting. Because when these two ultimately get together, it just feels so charming, it feels so realistic, it feels so genuine on just how they act together. Before I get into the relationship, let's see what Michael sees, and this film does a really good job at it because he's got this psychological issue happening with him as he sees everyone as the same people. Everyone has the same voice. Everyone has this male face, no matter if they're male or female or a little kid. He has no passion in life. He sees everyone the same, and he's a very lonely person because of that. No one seems to be right for him, and so finally when he sees someone with a different voice and a different face, which is Lisa, immediately he runs to her and sparks fly as he feels like this is the only other person, this is the person I'm meant to be with. And here we go with Lisa, who's this insecure, feels bad about herself, she's really shy, and she doesn't believe that she's really all that much to look at. And so you have this sweet, charming relationship as he's going on about her, just she's so beautiful, she's so different, she's the one for him, and she's just like, I don't know, do you want my best friend, my friend? Because she's always the better looker, and it's actually quite awkward in that way, but very genuinely and just very amazingly awkward to a point where it just feels realistic, it feels natural, it feels like a great chemistry. And to be honest, the romance with the two is probably the best scene in the entire movie. Now I will say it does lead to even more awkwardness of actual stop motion sex. Yeah, there's sex in this stop motion animated film. And nudity. Now, look, it feels natural. It doesn't feel like it's one of those things that's, ugh, oh God, ugh, get away. But I have a feeling that some people will look at it and say, oh, that's the most awkward thing I have ever seen. Because it is strange. You don't expect sex in a stop motion animated film. But yeah, that might be a turn-off to some people, that's for sure. Now, I will say it does take a while for him to meet Lisa. It's at least about 30-something minutes into it, maybe about 40 minutes into it, till he finally hears another voice, runs after her, and finds Lisa. So it is a little slow to some, I have heard. Because the first 40 or so minutes we get into the lifestyle of Michael Stone as he just sees everyone as the same person, he's irritated with people, and so you have many conversations where he's very blunt and just wants to be out of the conversation while the other people are trying to make awkward small talk to him, trying to be nice.
So how was your trip in?
It was fine, thanks.
Good. Bumpy at all?
No.
Sorry?
No.
Oh, well, you're safe now. I think the room will be to your liking, sir.
Like, there's very many scenes of dialogue throughout the movie that are like that, and they probably could have cut out a few of them. Maybe, for instance, the room service conversation, because it doesn't really lead anywhere. But I do have to say the conversation with his old flame does really bring a great scene to the film. This movie is very different, it's very unique, it's quite the masterpiece. And to be honest, I watched it again hoping that there was going to be a little bit more I can get out of the film, and I didn't feel like there was another reason to actually see it again. Like, I got everything I wanted out of it through the first view. I understood why he sees everyone as the same people. I understood the themes and all that. It doesn't really need to be seen a second time to understand everything that's going on. At least I don't think so. But having seen it a second time, I did realize that he's even more of a hypocrite than I thought he was. Because not only does he give a speech about talking about see them who they really are, that whole speech at the end is hypocritical, but there's also this one moment where he starts getting irritated with Lisa, and he's talking about her not talking while she chews on her food, yet he's doing the same thing right before it, and he's not even trying to hide that he's eating while he's talking with a mouthful. Now look, this movie has a full range of emotions that I feel for it. There's moments where it's sad, there's moments where it's charming, there's moments where it's romantic, there's moments where it's just very melancholy. Or is melancholic a word? I think it's just melancholy. I think that complexity really works for the film and makes it a really nice watch. Now of course this is going to be a little slow to people, this is going to be a little awkward to people, some people will just say, it's an animated film. But personally, I really enjoyed it, and if this would have came out in 2015 on a wide release, then this would be my favorite animated film of 2015. But because it had a wide release in 2016, it's going to have to be a 2016 movie. Same with Carol and the Danish Girl, which I plan to see pretty soon. But you know what? I'm going to give Anomalisa 5 stars. So, have you seen Anomalisa? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. If not, what is your favorite stop-motion animated film? As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.